You're listening to Talk Star Wars, a proud member of the Star Wars Commonwealth podcast network. Check us out on the web at starwarscommonwealth.com and take your first steps into a larger world. Talk Star Wars is a production of Emotionally 14. For fantastic podcasts, video series, blog posts, and much more, visit us on the web at emotionally14.com and enjoy content for the permanently teenaged. Hello there, and welcome to Talk Star Wars, episode 186 from the Star Wars Commonwealth podcast network, Emotionally 14 Productions. And there are only two, and I didn't think that through. I'm your host, as always, Rob Wade, and I'm joined by the Chewie to my Han, the Lando to my... No, wait, hang on. The Chewie to my Han, the Lando to my Chewie, and the Nien Nunb to my Lando.
Yeah, that works.
I'll figure out a way to tie it back into Han, but I got nothing.
I'm the Brad to your Rob.
You are the Brad to my Rob, Brad Harmer Barnes. Hello,
See,
sir.
that's the best we can do. Are there only two E14 products now? Did you say in the intro, sorry?
No, as in, it's part of the Commonwealth,
right.
Emotionally 14, and there could have been a third thing, but I couldn't think of one, and I didn't think that through.
Fine, gotcha. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I don't mean there are only two products.
Yeah, that's what confused me.
Two.
I make two, yeah. It's like, is he telling me that he's handing the keys over? He's resigning in a podcast intro? That's bold.
Yeah, I've given him that is bullshit. I will give him that. How have you been?
Yeah, all good. You?
I am good. I had a little bit of ill health earlier on in the week, but I've recovered. I am fine now. I was a bit bummed out because it meant I missed out on fun stuff, but you know, I spent a long time asleep, so swings and roundabouts. Make a good playground. I don't know how that expression normally finishes. Is there a finish to it? I don't even know.
I have no idea.
No, it's just one of those things, isn't it? Swings and roundabouts. We just accept it as common parlance, and we've never actually...
Yeah.
Nobody actually checks and figures these things out, but what can I do? You know?
Not me.
You know who might know? I reckon Vesuvi.
I mean, she knows everything, doesn't she, according to research we've done?
I think all the research I've done suggests that that's exactly right.
Yep. Banging.
However, before I read from Vesuvi, because she has, as always, kindly written to us, we have a new iTunes review. I say new. Okay. It's actually a couple of weeks old, but I didn't see it until recently. So, the iTunes review is titled Suspicious the Hutt, 5 stars.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Rob and Brad deliver fun and entertaining takes on the Star Wars universe through listener questions. It's always a good time hearing these two lads banter on about the wackier side of the galaxy far, far away. Cheers, gents. May the force be with you. And that's from Cad Bane's Bounty from the States. And my recollection is that is a person you can find on Twitter if you wish to follow them. I'm just going to... I did not think this through. I am just going to... it's Rick Villanueva, the Knight of the Commonwealth. So he's actually at Cad Bane's Bounty on Twitter. So
okay.
There you go. So that's a nice, easy tie-in. So that's helpful. So Rick, thank you very much for that. Very much appreciated. Obviously, we enjoy what we do, but it always makes it that little bit more special when other people do as well. Certainly makes it feel less like shouting into a vacuum.
Yep.
So, as promised, our first message this week comes from Vesuvi. And Vesuvi writes, "Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Brad. Happy Rosh Hashanah to our Jewish listeners. I'll be eating some apple dishes today to celebrate. I celebrate everything, usually by eating. Yeah, I'm good with that as a method of celebration. I'm happy with any of that.
She's perfectly cromulent.
Indeed. Regarding what Ian referenced last week, I saw a video representation of the entire comic. So this is the Age of Resistance Kylo Ren.
Yeah. She saw a pirated copy on YouTube.
A video representation. I think they just flick through it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's an avant-garde flick book.
Indeed. It seemed to me that the point wasn't about Luke, nor Han, nor Leia being seen in the Cave of Evil on Dagobah, although those were nice bonuses, reaffirming the Ben Solo-ness bubbling just below the Kylo Ren-y surface. I believe it was establishing, as this was first chronologically, that Snoke was good at reading Kylo's feelings, but rubbish at accurately interpreting the meaning of those emotions. Accordingly, this demonstrated Kylo's talent for hiding his authentic intentions to other Force-sensitive augurs, which he again applied in the moments before dispatching Snoke in Episode 8. But hey, it's all subjective, ain't it? Any impressions? From this attached image, a tease from Empire Magazine's November 2019 issue. I've no doubt you've seen this, so I don't, even though it's attached to the email, I'm sure. Of Kylo Ren and some First Order troops getting blown, backwards, perhaps by a craft unexpectedly departing a Star Destroyer's hangar. Kisses, hugs, and zero slugs. Vesuvi, Knight of the Commonwealth. There's a PS, but for now, let's just talk about the... So the image.
Yes.
What do you take it? Do you have a...
I'm pulling up a quick...
Just a quick reference.
Shot, yes.
Yes, indeed.
It's probably on Star Wars League, isn't it?
Almost certainly. But if you just do... It's from the Empire spread, so it's...
Okay. I shall find it shortly. I'll just keep talking so you can't automatically cut this bit out.
That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, no. I'm an idiot like that.
It's fine.
An image of Babu Frick.
Babu Frick is another one that's been doing the rounds. If you search Kylo Ren Empire 2019 on Google, other search engines are available. It's not the one I'm using. It's the third image in the gallery.
Oh, I see it. Yes. Okay.
Yep, you got it?
Oh, he looks cold.
He does look cold, doesn't it? It's the blue.
Yeah.
I think the blue does.
Yeah, it is a blue. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a blue.
It being blown back by something.
Yeah, there's definitely some force. See, my first instinct, this is how, how little I care for such conventions as Connected Universes making sense. My first instinct was Dr. Manhattan. Because he's not even the right,
Oh, God. Yeah. I mean...
Wrong universe.
I think there will be a lot of red tape to have Star Wars be firmly established as part of the DC universe.
That would be a heck of a jump.
Yeah, it really would. Yeah. But, subvert expectations.
Absolutely.
Who knows? If it come December, we might be wrong. And that is, just...
Dr. Manhattan.
Dr. Manhattan's massive weapon just off screen there.
Yeah, we have been hearing talks of super weapons. I mean, it seems just as plausible that they found a way to bring him in.
If you got to get him right in the thermal exhaust port.
Oh, blimey.
Yeah.
Wouldn't envy that, man.
So, yeah. If you haven't read Watchmen, this is all very funny.
Absolutely. We can only assure you, because that's all we got. But the colour scheme was very reminiscent of Dr. Manhattan.
It's a very similar colour tone, yeah. But it does look like engine flare or some sort of power source off to the right. It does look a bit like the Falcons.
I think it's the Falcon.
Yeah, it is what it looks like. But yeah, there's no reason it couldn't be something new giving off that kind of glow as well. But
I think it's a ship either way. I think it's
something
some sort of
coaxium powered.
Something spacecrafty is definitely definitely propelling itself out of that hangar. What's really cool about it is that Kylo Ren is just, obviously he's being buffeted by it because his cape's blowing in the wind, his hair's blowing in the wind, but he's staying in place. He can see he's holding himself in place. He's got the sort of almost talon-like hands. Yeah. I think that's really cool. And if they used, I like little things like that to kind of emphasize power. Yeah. Just little touches. Because, obviously it wasn't a little touch in Force Awakens when he stopped to blast the bolt dead in the air. But things like that are just, but then by contrast, the little thing they did with Vader where he caught a blaster bolt and then propelled it back is a nice little touch that makes you realize the kind of levels of power that are involved. Yeah. And Vader can...
and different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And certainly there were plenty of those in that corridor in both respects.
Oh, right, yes.
Yes. So, that's that. I think it's a really cool shot. I definitely think it's a ship. I'm almost certain it's the Falcon. And I just think it's so cool how they've got Kylo Ren just kind of planting himself with the
as always, assuming that this shot is even in the film.
Well, quite so.
We've been fooled before.
Indeed. What was the spread? Was it Vanity Fair that had the spread of photos from the film? Recently,
wasn't it Force Awakens? It was Kylo Ren, a load of First Order troopers in the snow, which wasn't in the film.
No, indeed, it seemed like they probably put some Kylo Ren stuff in the film that hadn't made it, because there were things in the teaser as well.
Even that shot in the first teaser where he kind of leans out sideways and ignites a broadside wasn't even in the film.
No, I got the impression from watching the film that it was shot from a different angle. So it was kind of, they used it, but they used it in a different angle.
Yeah.
But obviously by that point he's got the mask off. So when you have the teaser, you want to, because there was all sorts of speculation about, is that Gwendolyn Christie and is that Adam Driver?
Yeah.
And we had people on the Crazy Train, I think, who were speculating Gwendolyn Christie.
Yes.
And, I mean, that would have been cool too. But
yeah, it made perfect sense at the time. It was a perfectly prominent theory.
It was as much as we knew about anything.
Yeah.
So Vesuvius PS. I saw Star Wars Galaxy's Edge Adventure Awaits last night on the Freeform channel.
What?
I've never heard of this.
No, that's a new one.
Freeform channel sounds like a fantastically terrible, chaotic, they now follow us 4 hours of kittens.
Yeah. Followed by a complete series of Great British Bake Off backwards. Just watch them smash a cake into its constituent elements.
Yeah. And then 10 minutes in, they go, board the kittens now, here are some skateboards.
Yeah.
It was basically a star-studded 2-hour commercial for the parks, but thoroughly enjoyable.
That's two different things.
George Lucas said some lovely things about the feeling of Black Spire Outpost and the care put into creating it.
Oh, very original vision.
It's pretty cool.
That's Bane throwing his opinion there for some reason.
Yeah, why not? I haven't had him read The Tiger Who Came to Tea yet. So.
Could have been Kermit.
Yeah, I mean, Lucas has that about him.
It's the same voice.
He has very similar vocal tones. The all-time best Lucas is Josh Robert Thompson.
Yeah.
If you read The Secret History of Star Wars, which is available as an audiobook, Josh Robert Thompson, that guy who he went viral a few years ago doing De Niro and Morgan Freeman.
Oh, yeah.
That guy does the narration of the book, and he does George Lucas's voice.
Oh, amazing.
In any bit where it's a quote, he does as many... I don't think he does every single person who's quoted, but he does, a selection of people.
The ones he can do,
Yeah, exactly. The ones he's got a kind of passable version of.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty cool.
Don't fall into stereotypes or anything. He does the George Lucas, and it's really cool. I mean, anybody who's interested in Star Wars generally, I would heartily recommend The Secret History of Star Wars as a book experience anyway, but especially, not least of all, because of Josh Robert Thompson's George Lucas impression, which is... I would say perhaps second to none but the man himself, which makes sense as impressions go, because Josh Robert Thompson is exceptional at impressions, and I'm a little bit jealous, especially as mine seem to have got worse over the years.
Yeah.
Whereas his just seem to get better, which is infuriating.
Yep.
Yep. That was my...
Man, if I can do Sam Witwer's Kenobi scream, I'll be happy.
Oh, blimey. I mean, I've got a baseball bat.
Yeah. No, I learned how to do extreme metal vocal stars. Never really played in a heavy metal band or anything like that, but I was singing in other like punky type bands and stuff. Or it was just something I liked and something I taught myself to do. And it was just when he did that Kenobi scream, I was just like, I really wish I could do that because it's insane.
It sounds hard.
Yeah, I mean, you tinker around with the guitar every now and again.
Yeah, but
it sounds like he's got Floyd Rose in his neck.
Yeah, that's a good descriptor of it, I think.
Yeah,
it's quite something.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's very impressive. So Galaxy's Edge, I did see some bits of it today because Outside Xbox is one of the YouTube channels I watch every now and then, and they sent their team, like their whole video team, to Galaxy's Edge, so I got to see some bits from there, and it does seem pretty cool.
Yeah, okay.
And thankfully, there seems to be, from what I understand, one of my workmates just got back from Galaxy's Edge. Well, not specifically Galaxy's Edge. He went to America, and while he was there, went to Galaxy's Edge. And he was telling me that apparently they're going to put it in Paris in 2023 as well. Okay. So,
road trip.
Well, yeah, eventually there'll be a point where it's not so prohibitively difficult to get to Galaxy's Edge. That would be nice.
The Spire Noir.
Yeah, absolutely.
I assume. I don't know. I don't speak much German.
So our next message, maybe this is a good point to drop the audio message in.
Okay, yeah, let's do that then.
Yeah, so we've got an audio message from Matt Gilbert.
Hello there.
He's been kind enough to write in audio form, which is not how that works at all. But, again, set these things up, don't really think it through. Such is life. So let's hear from Matt.
Hello, Matt.
G'day, Rob and Brad. Hope you're both doing well. My question for you two gents is, do you guys have a favourite Star Wars coffee table book? Mine is a toss-up between either the blueprints, which show actual blueprints and designs of sets and ships in the Star Wars universe, not including the Disney-era Star Wars movies, or Visions, which showed artists and their different interpretations of Star Wars, however they feel like showing it. So, yeah, I'd love to see if you guys have a favourite or if you have any recommendations. So that'd be awesome. Cheers, guys. Matt.
Thank you very much, Matt. And that sounded, he bless his heart. He sent me this message and he said, I hope the audio works. Let me know if it's okay. Let me know if it's too quiet. Let me know if it sounds all right. And bless his heart. It sounded wonderful, Matt. You did really well.
Yes.
You did a great job.
Well done.
So, favourite Star Wars coffee table book?
I wonder if his sentence was going at first. I thought he was going to say, have you got a favourite Star Wars coffee table?
Yeah, I really like that. There's this one that's got the Han Solo in carbonite. It's pretty cool. Yeah. But at the same time, prohibitive for any sort of beverage vessels.
Yeah, even before he mentioned it, I was going to say Visions is one of my favourites. I just looked up, man, it's nearly 10 years old now.
I don't know if I've read that one.
I'll dig out my copy for you. But it's not a lot to read. It's mostly just artwork.
Okay.
But I'll see if I can dig out my copy for you. I have quite a few Star Wars coffee table books. They're all in storage at the moment because they're quite heavy and are at toddler grabbing height.
Yes, indeed.
They're put away for the time being. Yeah. Star Wars Visions is great. There's another one came around a similar time called Star Wars Illustration, which was just more of the same.
Yes.
That's great. We have the Star Wars sound effects. Well, the noises, sounds of Star Wars. We actually had a RAM chip built into it that you could program. It would play the sound effects as you were reading about them.
I have a copy of that somewhere.
Yeah. I quite like the Star Wars Atlas as well. That's a relatively recent one. I think that came out about the same time as Rogue One.
I'm quite partial to. So I don't have a copy of this. But I was very impressed with it when I looked at it. The Star Wars Vault.
Oh yeah, I have that. It's a good bit of kit, that. Superb. I have. They did the book of the Jedi Code and the Sith Code and the Bounty Hunter Code, but like A5 hardback books.
Yes.
I have the Sith inside the animatronic holocron as well.
Nice. I have the.
Pretty cool.
Thanks to James at the Green Door podcast, formerly of the Tumbling Saber as well. We did Secret Sithmas one year.
Oh, yeah.
And I got it just in time for my birthday, to give you an idea of the Postal Service's aptitude. But my birthday's in May, for those who are curious. But I got they did a limited edition, I guess it's limited edition, double pack of the Sith Code and the Jedi Code in a single box.
Yeah.
And I have a copy of that, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
So awesome. When I was younger, I was partial to, it wasn't really a coffee table book so much, but it was the, I think you might have had it as well, if I seem to remember talking to you about it, the Diplomatic Corps entrance exam.
I think I had your old copy when you had a bit of a clear out, yeah.
Ah, yes. That was nails.
It was
beyond
horrible.
Measure.
Yeah, it really was. It was beyond anything.
And it was massive, as in, like, so lengthy as well.
It was huge.
It wasn't just like, do some questions and then here's some trivia. It was like, here's 37 or more different sets of questions. Do them all.
On wedge.
And then here's an enormous answer key at the back.
Yeah. And it was a big book as well. It's like bigger than an A4 size book.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't small.
It was like the size of like the Essential Guide to Droids, the Essential Guide to Characters. It was that kind of
exactly
size.
That,
yeah, same publisher probably.
Yeah, I had a bunch of those.
Yeah. Oh man, good times.
Yeah, it was. It was a good book. I remember thinking it was a very good book, and I was very impressed by the volume.
Yeah.
Of information and stuff in there. It was very impressive. I quite like. I'm partial to the visual dictionaries.
Yeah, they're nice.
I had the Force Awakens one somewhere, and that's pretty cool.
Most recent one's in the works in the UK at the moment, pretty cheap.
What, there's in the Rise of Skywalker one?
No, not Rise. It would be Last Jedi then, wouldn't it?
It'll be Last Jedi, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, still, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'll have to go and have a look into that. Because
the works are really good for Star Wars coffee table books, actually.
Yes, I would agree. They are pretty good. I've picked up a couple. I did pick up, I remember talking to you about it. I think I did it on the air as well. The Star Wars Coding Challenges one.
Oh, yeah,
I was a little bit...
You're rather disappointed.
I was, because for those who haven't heard it, the Star Wars Coding Challenges book is designed to teach you how to use a programming language called Scratch, which is very WYSIWYG. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, well, I'm trying to learn to code. And I thought maybe that would be a good way to, if I had a Star Wars kind of bent to it, maybe I would be, sufficiently inspired to persevere with it outside of work, which is where I'm struggling. But when I looked into it, it didn't come with, there was all these, games and stuff you could program, but none of the sprites were downloadable anywhere.
Oh, you said that,
so you had to program your own. Like, they had all these examples in the book of like, you can use this Boba Fett. It's like, but where do I find this Boba Fett to use as a character in this jumping game?
In the Sarlacc, obviously.
Well, clearly I was,
casual,
not up to the challenge of coding Star Wars Boba Fett things in Scratch. So I've given up with it. So it's probably going to go to some sort of local charity establishment, because that's usually where it's usually where the books that can't fit in the train station bookshelves for free go is charity shops, because I like people to be able to get them cheaper, and I like charities to be able to benefit from that.
Absolutely.
I like to think I'm nice that way.
I think you have your moments. Yeah,
certainly. That's a good. Yeah, that's pretty fair, to be honest. Having moments, moments is all I can hope for.
That's a good question. I like that one.
Yeah, I like that, Matt. Yeah, Matt, feel free to send us audio stuff. It takes a little bit longer to set my kit up, but it's well worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And anybody who wants to send them in, podcast@emotionally14.com is where you do it. Mm-hmm. Speaking of sending things in.
Can confirm.
Speaking of sending things in, you remember Rick Villanueva?
Yeah. Is there something wrong with your diction tonight?
There seems to be, doesn't there? Yeah. I seem to be overly thorough.
Yeah. It's endearing. I'll give you that.
Well, hopefully the listeners agree. Rather than just going, who is this guy?
Who is this guy? Is he having a stroke?
Well, would I know? Well, yeah. So remember Rick Villanueva? From sort of 20 minutes
I can't spell it, but yes.
Remember 20 minutes ago or so?
Yeah, I'm familiar with him.
He also wrote in a question, very kindly. I know. He's pulling double duty this week without realising it. Hey, Rob and Brad, let's play a little game.
All right.
John Williams has given us some of the most iconic music in movie history.
Yep.
Can you imagine some of those tunes exactly as they are, both in sound and title, but framed by different scenes or sequences? For example, Twin Sons, but not tied to Luke's longing on Tatooine. Instead, Boss Nass holding two peace orbs at the end of Phantom Menace or something equally ridiculous. Obviously, the themes with names might not work for this exercise, but I'm curious to hear what you guys come up with.
Qui-Gon's noble end. Cheers
to you both. May the force be with you. Rick Villanueva, Knight of the Commonwealth.
Okay.
So thank you, Rick, for for the review that I can only apologise for not getting to earlier, but also for writing in this question this week. So, what you got?
I'm looking through the soundtrack albums because I don't actually know many of the track listings by name.
Ah, yes, that can be tricky.
Yeah. Kids at Play from Phantom Menace.
Oh, is that the...
Watto's deal in Kids at Play, it's called. Kids at Play could work for the younglings scene.
I mean, they've got this habit in the audiobooks of falling back to Across the Stars quite extensively.
I hate that so much.
Yeah. I've already forewarned you about the wedding, haven't I?
Yeah.
But at least makes some sense.
Hey, it was at my wedding as well. Yeah, so that's perfectly fine.
That at least makes some sense in context as well.
Yeah.
Now granted, it's not the example we're going to go for in terms of couples, but because let's be fair, not the best of stories in terms of...
Some of these have quite specific titles.
That's the trouble, isn't it? So I did have a thought for this. I think Duel of the Fates could work with the Praetorian Guard scene.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
In fact, I was surprised, like I say, given their penchant for falling back on some of the classics.
I was almost surprised. Battle of the Heroes, actually.
Yeah, that kind of works, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. Actually, you could probably get the Palpatine's teachings, the one with the throat singing and the sort of...
Yeah.
No, hang on. I'm thinking of a different one. Padme's Ruminations.
Yeah, the synth one.
The synth one, yeah.
Yeah.
From when they're just basically staring into space, but as far as, we can see it because we have the magic of film. But they are just looking out the window and being a bit sad.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme. That could probably work for Ray and Ben's distant force thingy, force Skyping, whatever they want to call it. It does, it does kind of play into the Raylo thing a bit more than I'd be particularly kind of dead set on, but at the same time, that may end up being what happens, and I'm just going to have to make my peace with it.
The immolation scene from Revenge of the Sith could work for when C-3PO is burning the Jawa corpses.
Lest we forget.
He's really cavalier about that. For a guy who's normally freaked out, who's constantly freaked out and nervous and edgy, he's very at ease of disposing of Jawa corpses. It's almost like this casual flump on top of a pile of burning corpses from C-3PO, a guy who looks like he's normally washing his hands all the time.
I love the idea that Obi-Wan just, wait, Luke, it's too dangerous. And then Luke goes off and then C-3PO says, I suppose we should burn this. I'll get the kerosene.
Yeah.
Why have you got kerosene already?
This is the only time we ever see you pick something up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What is this, the Spanish Inquisition?
I'm not saying he isn't 000.
No, but...
the tragic choral music of the immolation scene over that would be amazing.
Instead of like him screaming, "I hate you," you've just got
yeah.
That would work for me, to be honest.
Yeah.
To be fair, a lot of the things we propose, even though they're jolly silly, will work for me as a general rule.
Anakin's dark deeds for the Rogue One corridor scene.
That would definitely work. That would actually be a really nice, a really nice tie-in. Because let's be fair, those are some more of them, aren't they?
Yes,
I think that's fair enough.
I think this thing through.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're not going to hear any argument from me on that subject.
The little people work over the Ugnaughts.
Sorry?
There's a track on the A New Hope soundtrack called The Little People Work.
Huh. That seems a bit classist for the New Hope.
Yeah.
That seems odd. It's not really bit. Is it one to normally push the themes of social and class warfare?
Is John Williams normally one to push? No. It doesn't. It's not something I've ever heard him talk about either way. To be honest with you,
no. It's also not the kind of thing. If I was an interviewer, it wouldn't be the first thing I'd think to ask.
Yeah,
I think that's fair, and I think that's fair, and I don't blame them for that because it would be an odd disconnect. John, you've composed some of the most iconic and impressive musical scores of all time. Is it time to eradicate the bourgeoisie?
Yeah. There's a track called The Training of a Jedi Knight on the Empire soundtrack. I feel like that could be reappropriated elsewhere.
Yeah, I would have thought there would be some use for that, maybe in Last Jedi.
Or maybe in The Phantom Menace, where everyone's giving him the I will train you as a Jedi speech.
Yeah, perhaps so. I think there's probably some overlap. I think you're going to find, generally speaking, there's going to be some overlap in many respects when you're dealing with instruction. So the whole speech about judge me by my size and all that would probably work just as easily in Last Jedi when she's training with a lightsaber and Luke's watching her.
There's a track on Empire called Departure of Boba Fett that could work for the Battle over the Sarlacc.
Yeah, that would definitely.
I mean if they played it on a slide whistle.
Maybe if they just do the melodica from those really awful Jurassic Park renditions on YouTube. We go for that. That would probably work, I think.
The Magic Tree.
Magic Tree.
There's a track on Empire called The Magic Tree.
I'm guessing that's the Cave of Evil.
I guess so, but it just feels weird.
It is let's be fair, Cave of Evil is a way better name.
Yeah.
Really, the other option is really quite poor. How much, out of interest, how much decision making do you think John Williams has on the specific naming of the tracks?
My understanding is probably all of it.
It seems like the kind of thing where
I would
you would
imagine,
right?
as working titles, they're probably just what he's called that scene in his mind.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Most of the time, it's just the name stuck in. I would imagine.
Yeah, it's just popped into my head as we're talking about music and stuff. I wonder how much of it is like, I imagine he's not so thing like theme from Superman 2. It's like, yeah, I mean that's you can't really do much with that beyond.
Yeah,
it's the theme from Superman 2, main theme. So
Ewok celebration and finale. When I was a kid, this was all Yub Nub.
Yeah, indeed. Yub Nub as far as the eye can see, and we liked it. I mean,
I'm going off the most recent remastered motion picture soundtracks on Spotify. Yeah, obviously other pressings and arrangements are available.
Sure. I mean, that goes without saying, I think. And but at the same time, I think nobody will dislike the fact that you brought it up. Generally speaking, if we do our due diligence when it comes to making sure that people understand that other services are available than the ones we use, I think that's a good...
Some people are really quite soundtrack nerds, and I'm one of them, so I understand.
Yeah, indeed. So, that makes sense.
Oh, there's a track on the Force Awakens soundtrack called I Can Fly Anything, which could totally work on Solo somewhere.
Yeah, totally. Or even anything with Poe Dameron in it.
Mm-hmm. There's a track called That Girl with the Staff.
Okay. I mean,
Bastila Shan.
we're gonna soundtrack books now because she doesn't turn up. She turns up in KOTOR, but I never think that's John Williams. I'm not even sure. Some of it will be
using some motifs, I guess. Yeah,
some of it will be John. I was about to say John Legend. It's definitely not John Legend. John Williams.
No, that's something else.
Yeah, indeed. I don't know if I'd want to, as much as I love John Legend, I don't think I'd want to see his take on Star Wars. That'd be weird.
Ways of the Force, Scherzo for X-Wings.
Yeah.
Jedi Steps.
There's certain things that are just too, I think they're too iconic where they are.
Yeah.
Like March of the Resistance turns up twice, but it's really well done.
Yes. Last Jedi. The Supremacy. Fun with Finn and Rose.
Yeah,
it's a weird title.
It is a weird title. There's my sense on the Last Jedi, like whatever you think of the film, I don't think it's unfair to say that the soundtrack is one of the weaker ones.
I wonder if that's because John Williams doesn't really know what to make of it as a film.
Maybe. I mean, my sort of sense is it's just...
I'm speculating there.
It feels... Yeah, totally. It feels like a greatest hits of Star Wars more than a film in its own right.
Yeah.
And there's nothing really that, like... I can put March of the Resistance in really easily into my head. Rey's theme.
Yeah.
There's obviously all the iconic tracks from the original trilogy and some, a bit less so from the prequels, but there's still plenty. Mm-hmm. With Force Awakens to a degree and Last Jedi mainly, I can't tell you much about those.
Yeah. The Last Jedi, I think it recycles a lot of stuff, or the stuff that isn't recycled this isn't that engaging. Whereas it's almost like the prequel trilogy, there's almost like hit singles on those albums. Mm-hmm. And even Force Awakens had Rey's theme, but The Last Jedi didn't have anything.
There's nothing like that, is there? That just kind of jumps out as like a track, a standout track.
No,
but say it's it's nothing to. It's not that it makes no. To me, it makes no real difference to the quality of the movie. But I wonder if little things like that are why I don't necessarily think of it as like an amazing movie. It's things like that will elevate a good movie to great and a okay movie to good.
Yes,
a good soundtrack, a strong soundtrack.
I get it.
Of mine, like I was thinking about this the other day because they're doing, they did the Albert Hall. I know it's done the world tour. They do the sort of play along with the movie orchestral performances.
Yes,
they've just announced a new batch in the last week or so. One of them is Lord of the Rings, which I'm guessing will start in the afternoon and go on to the following
You'd hope,
Thursday.
Right? Yeah.
You'll start on the Saturday afternoon and go through to the following Thursday. But Return of the Jedi is on there.
Okay.
And I'm actually quite intrigued by that because of the films in the original trilogy. I would say that's probably one of my favourite, probably my favourite soundtrack of all of them.
You used to cosplay for it, didn't you?
Yes, when I was a kid, I did.
Yeah, see?
Dressed in black.
Yeah.
Where possible. I got better over the years at accepting that it wasn't always possible. Mainly because, you'd be out and that made it weird.
Laundry day. So on.
Exactly. Ultimately, if I wanted to make it so that I could dress in these clothes all the time, I should have been cleaner.
Yeah.
Because then laundry day would have had less of an effect, generally speaking.
It's an excuse I've given many people, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's why you didn't last at that laundrette.
No, it's gross misconduct, mate.
Oh, yeah, fair. All right. Have you tried being cleaner? Has that crossed your mind at all? No? All right, well.
No.
It'll be ready.
Not how I do things.
They'll be ready Thursday.
Yeah.
Just in time to get out Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Orchestral performance. Yeah, but they're doing a bunch of films. But yeah, Return of the Jedi was the one that caught my eye. Like I said, I think it's because I have a lot of really fond memories of that film's soundtrack to the point where I think I might invite my sister as well because I think it's...
she's a big fan of that soundtrack.
She likes that soundtrack a lot, I think. So
yeah, okay, cool.
I realise you were kind of only semi-serious, but it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pleasantly surprised to find that's the case.
She likes that film anyway because she's only human. And
I get it.
And I think she would enjoy that trip because when seeing The New Hope was awesome. I'd missed out on Empire for reasons I can't really precise. Probably the fact that we've had a wedding to organise.
Yeah, it takes time.
It does. And obviously, expenses like that are lovely for things like birthday presents and stuff. But when you're planning and paying for a wedding, you put a harder limit down on present budgets, I'd say.
I think that's totally fair.
Yeah, I don't think that's unfair to suppose. So, Rick, hopefully those answers are satisfactory to you. I suspect, I have a sense that, the kind of guy who is kind enough to both write us a review and write us a question is going to be willing to give us a bit of...
Yeah, I don't think we did badly anyway.
No, exactly. I think he's going to give us some credit before we start, and I think he's going to be happy with our answers. So
everyone loves a bit of critic.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So our next message comes from Christian.
It does.
It says, "Hey guys, my name is Christian.
Correct.
And I'm from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada.
Correct.
I'm a relatively new listener, and I'm extremely entertained by your banter.
That's why we do it.
Indeed. It's also correct.
Yes.
I realize it's entirely subjective, but correct. Yeah. Well done on choosing the correct subjective opinion.
Tell us what you reckon.
Anyway, I'm emailing because I have an idea in mind for what the Kenobi series could look like. To give some background, I make cider, and part of the job is pressing apples.
I'm excited already.
I don't know that it's... I don't think that's relevant to the plot.
Oh, okay.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. I thought it was going to be a cider-fueled Star Wars script.
I know. I was kind of hoping that would be like a With Now and I style.
Yeah.
To give some background, I make cider and part of the job is pressing apples. A co-worker and I came up with an idea for the Kenobi series during this time.
Okay.
After an hour or so of conversation, we came up with what he could only describe as bone-chilling. It got me so inspired, I've written an outline and I'm about to begin a screenplay. So here it is. I apologise for the length in advance. We've often said that. The series is set 8 years after the Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
In that time, Obi-Wan has been training under the tutelage of his former master on Tatooine. But it's been some time since they've communicated, leaving him filled with doubt in his place in the Force and as a Jedi. Obi-Wan is riddled with PTSD and rarely sleeps as his pain stems from the death of his best friend. At this point, he assumes Anakin is dead. He forgets his purpose, which is to protect Luke. Meanwhile, on Coruscant, Bail Organa is in a Senate hearing where they're being debriefed on the string of genocide across the various systems. The Senate is told Crimson Dawn is behind the attacks, and the Empire will need more power to secure the fate of other planets. Bail feels the Empire is not doing enough, and it is only a matter of time before more systems are victimized. Therefore, he puts together a secret team consisting of misfits that know how to fly under the radar. The goal is to track down the responsible parties and bring them to justice. The team consists of a pilot, a hacker, a thief, and an ex-soldier. But Bail knows they can need a leader who can work in the shadows and not one in the public eye as the stakes are high. He thinks Obi-Wan is the man for the job. In order to keep this rather short, the premise of the rest of the series would be Obi-Wan reluctantly helping and leading this team on missions to various planets to find a way to get ahead of Crimson Dawn in order to thwart future attacks. Towards the end of the series, they finally track down and confront a higher-up in Crimson Dawn, only to find they were paid by the Empire to take the blame, and the small battalion led by Darth Vader is forcing other systems into submission without the Senate's knowledge. This is the moment where Obi-Wan first finds out that his former apprentice is alive. In the last episode, Obi-Wan and Vader face off. There is a twist leading up to their confrontation. Obi-Wan believes there is still good in Vader, which almost gets him killed. This near-death experience would make him realize the actual importance of Luke and his purpose, believing that Luke has the only chance of defeating Vader. Luke is the galaxy's only hope, in Ben's eyes. Let me know if you want to see the script when it's done. I think it's a good one. Cheers, guys. Christian. Well, Christian, first of all, thank you very much for writing in. It's always wonderful to hear from people. It's especially nice to hear from a first-time writer-inner, even though, by the sounds of it, you've been listening for a little while. Pleased that our banter is entertaining you, and long may it continue, of course. What do you make of the outline?
Intriguing. A couple of minor canon glitches, but those can be ironed out.
Okay.
In second and third drafts.
Well, this is the kind of thing it might be useful for Christian to know, so maybe you could enlighten us.
Isn't it implied in Rogue One that Bail Organa doesn't contact Obi-Wan Kenobi until the end of Rogue One, the start of A New Hope?
I mean, it's implied. I don't know if it's out and out stated, but...
You just to be careful how he did it in this, that was all.
Wouldn't necessarily be a deal breaker, I don't think.
So Obi-Wan and Vader facing off, isn't it? Established in A New Hope that that's the first time they've met.
Let me think. I'm trying to think what the dialogue is.
So Darth Vader says, maybe, if Darth Vader was going to say, strange, I felt a presence I've not felt since July.
Well, bearing in mind, if it's set 8 years after Revenge of the Sith, there's still 10 years where they could have not seen each other.
I just feel if Vader knew that Obi-Wan was out there, he'd be determined to get him.
That is entirely possible, yeah.
Yeah. But as I say, these are the type of things you iron out in second and third drafts.
Sure.
But no, the overall concept's good.
Yeah. I'm trying to think on any Vader dialogue or Obi-Wan dialogue that specifically says, I haven't seen him since,
Have my own legs.
Yeah. I can't think, like Vader says, the last time I felt it was in the presence of my old master. To my recollection, he doesn't say when that is.
Yeah. Okay.
And it would, the only thing personally that I'm not wild about is the notion that Obi-Wan's going off on missions and adventures off Tatooine. Yeah. To me, it sort of seems like...
bumping into Darth Vader, flagging him up, drawing his attention towards where Luke is.
Yeah, kind of.
It's the issues I've got with him. I think if you're going to go down that road, I wouldn't bring Vader into it at all.
Okay.
Vader's got his own thing going on at the same time in the Darth Vader comic series. Mm-hmm. Who wrote that? Also, Dennis Hopeless wrote that one, was it?
Charles Soule.
Charles Soule, yeah. So, but he's got his own stuff going on. Mm-hmm. One of the weaknesses of the old expanding universe was it tried to involve everyone all the time. Everyone was marrying cousins of each other, and everyone was. It got too
incestuous.
Everyone, yeah, it did. Everyone knew everyone else in the old expanding universe.
Yeah.
If you're going to do an Obi-Wan story, you don't have to bring Vader into it. There's space for Vader to have his own adventures and Obi-Wan to have his own adventures as well. Mm-hmm. If it were me, I wouldn't bring Vader into it at all. There's enough for him to be doing with the Crimson Dawn thing and the Bail Organa thing without you even needing to mention Vader.
Yeah, because you could even have it so that Vader's referenced and maybe he appears, but he doesn't actually face off with Obi-Wan.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I do. I don't think you need that climax.
They don't need to face off. They could probably actually, their paths could cross and they could rub up against each other without realizing that they're actually rubbing up against each other. My favorite thing about this is the wording of it that made my mental images go mad because my brain is stupid and it's hilarious. In the last episode, Obi-Wan and Vader face off. I thought of Travolta and Nick Cage immediately. So the idea that there'd just be Obi-Wan, but just with the tiniest bit of helmet,
in
his face, and then Vader would have like. All right.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. It's fine.
I went all Beavis and Butthead for a minute.
That's okay. That's absolutely fine. I'm sure everybody following along at home has gone along in a similar way.
You've gone pink.
Absolutely okay. So yeah, I can imagine. Like, I just pictured this face swap where only part of Darth Vader's helmet is gone and it's just been replaced by Alec Guinness.
Yeah.
And then Obi-Wan's face has just got like, just the front part. Just kind of, if you were to skim the bits that aren't even off of Darth Vader's, off the front of Darth Vader's helmet, that would be the bit that was on Obi-Wan's face. And it's just, in my head, it's hilarious. So yeah, thank you for that mental image, Kristen, as well as the outline. Yeah, I sort of feel like you could have Crimson Dawn turn up for sure. I like that. I think that's a good premise to work with. I think you could keep Crimson Dawn on Tatooine. I actually do. I think you could work that. I think you could totally work that in.
Yeah, totally.
I think that would be. I mean, thing is, right? It's worth bearing in mind. You can tell a lot of stories on one world, and all you need evidence of that is all the stories that are set on Earth. Like ever, they've all been set on one. They've all been set on one planet. Now, granted, there are planets that have Tatooine, for example, has a less varied climate than the Earth. But there are sci-fi stories that deal with like Dune. Most of it's on a desert planet.
Yeah,
a decent chunk. Battlestar happens entirely on a fleet.
I think with Star Wars, it's one of those things that makes it space fantasy rather than sci-fi. You could easily translate. In a fantasy novel, they would go to the desert, they would go to where it's snowy, they would go to the city. And with Star Wars, where everything is big and every Hutt is a gangster, every Rodian's a slimy criminal, every Boffin's a spy. That's it. Everything's broad strokes. So if they don't go to the desert, they go to the desert planet, because that's how things are in the galaxy far, far away, which I love. But I'm an idiot.
I think you could tell a story that doesn't need to leave Tatooine, doesn't need to involve Vader on screen with Obi-Wan, but
it was super cheap to make.
They can have each other be antagonists, but that's all you need. You don't need it to necessarily have Vader involved. But then maybe Obi-Wan can still get wind of Vader being alive some other way. Yeah. And that can give him the catalyst to be like, oh, I need to take better care of Luke and stop and keep my attention and focus on the task at hand. My hesitation about the Kenobi series has always been, how do you take it off Tatooine in a way that makes sense, rather than just have him abandon his duties and his responsibilities that he's kind of signed up for? I mean, he volunteered for this, let's not forget.
Absolutely.
At the end of Revenge of the Sith, he didn't go, oh, do I have to? He's like, I will watch over him.
Can't I come to the swamp with you?
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's no fun. I'm being so bored.
Sit on a bloody desert.
18 years is rubbish. But you don't get that in Revenge of the Sith. Quite the contrary. He's just, let's be fair, cut his best friend to pieces. And he's like, no, that's fine.
I'll go sit in the desert.
I just, I need to clear my head. I need some me time. I need to digital minimalism.
I guess I deserve this.
I wouldn't be taking my tablet with me. I'll be going, old school books, physical media all the way. And that's my holiday. I say holiday. It's a work do. So Christian, great job. Really great job. Just it's a wonderful outline, I think. There are a couple of things I would change, but I'm not by any stretch a famous screenwriter, and I want that to be on the records because there have been some people unsure. I just share a name with a guy, both the Dancing with the Stars dude and the writer of most of the James Bond films, some of which are good, some of the more recent ones at least. So, Our next message comes from James, and James has submitted a bunch of thoughts and questions. So I've kind of organized them into individual little snippets because, there's a lot here. So James begins. What if the red crystal we see hanging in Luke's quarters in The Last Jedi isn't Vader's, but Luke's itself, and it was bled dry by Kylo when he turned? So for those who need context on this, Luke has a crystal hung up in his hut on Ahch-To.
Does he? Okay.
Yeah, it's red, hung around, and it's worn it's kind of set up as a necklace, basically.
Okay.
A lot of people were theorizing that maybe it's Vader's synthetic crystal from his Sith lightsaber, or a chunk of it. Or
when would he have got that?
Well, that was one of the theories doing the rounds about the perfect weapon. Was that it was Vader's saber that was the subject of it?
Isn't that chucked down the shaft when he gets his arm cut off?
Well, I mean, we said that about Luke's lightsaber as well, when it turns up. Anakin's lightsaber, I should say.
I'm still waiting for an explanation on that.
Well, it's a good story for another time. So.
Yeah, still annoyed about that.
Well, hopefully, maybe we'll get something from it this time. Mm-hmm. They're gonna be going back into the old films, so they have to, right? Because
the red crystal was so it was Luke's crystal that was bled dry by Kylo. Yeah,
so obviously the new canon explanation for red crystals is that they're bled by Sith when they're taken from Jedi.
Yes.
So maybe the theory goes that on the way to while Luke's buried underneath the hut, not to say, I don't mean to sound suspicious, the hut, the physical furniture. Maybe Kylo takes a bunch of Luke's students and leaves. Maybe while he's there, he, breaks Luke's crystal in as many words. I mean, it's possible. They never explain what that crystal's for, so it's as cromulent an explanation as any we have, which is to say, not many. But we don't know how much time passes between when Luke gets buried under the hut and when he comes to and realizes that the temple's burning down. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of time there that's kind of unaccounted for. You're probably talking a couple of hours, or at least half an hour. I don't know how long the bleeding process takes.
I'm not an expert.
No, but then if Kylo's kind of raw anger and energy, and he's just been woken up by his, let's be fair, a very aggressive Nightlight, he might be kind of pent up, and it might be a lot quicker to bleed a crystal if you're that furious. Mm-hmm. I say, as Nightlights go, I wouldn't want that.
No.
You're laying there perfectly asleep, and you're like, oh, I left it on. You turn around, and there's your uncle just waving a light sword at you. You're just like, I'd sooner just have my phone, to be honest, at that point. Yeah. So James continues, I've watched the original trilogy, no hyperbole here, well over 100 times.
All right. I've seen it 104 times.
It's not a competition. We've done this. You're allowed to both like things. It's okay. I watched it multiple times a week growing up. Yet the trench run to this day captivates me in such a way that I can never look away. I realised that while rewatching the movies, and I noticed that I don't do that at all with The Force Awakens. I want to watch the saber duels, Poe taking out a dozen TIEs in 5 seconds, Han and Kylo, but none captivate me like the trench run. Han and Kylo does come close, but parts of The Last Jedi do too.
Cool.
Yeah, the trench run, it is a little bit, there's something about it, isn't there? It's the combination of the music, it's the visuals, it's the
New Year's Eve party, yeah.
It's the New Year's Eve party. It's the, let's be fair, at this point on my part, quite a stupid notion that maybe this time they'll fail.
Yeah.
It's been,
that's a Dark Horse 6-issue series waiting to happen.
Well, this is true indeed. But I get that. There's a scene in every film. For everybody has a scene from some film that never fails to grab them when they're watching the film.
Yeah. I gotcha.
For me, let's think. Star Wars, what's the scene? I think it's the throne room battle with Luke and Vader, with the Emperor kind of in the background just heckling. I love that scene just in so many ways. But that's probably the one that springs to mind. Have you got a particular one that sort of...
I'm trying to think if there's anyone that I always sit and watch. Is it so my daughter's Star Wars obsessed at the moment, so the movies are on fairly often. I'm trying to think, is there any bit I always...
Drop what you're doing and...
Drop one and find myself watching it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I feel like there's probably something really obvious that's going to come back to me in a few minutes.
That's kind of where I am as well. It's like, I feel like there's one I'm missing, but I can't think what it is.
Yeah, I think it's the reveal of a Superstar Destroyer.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Just that, also the reveal of the first Star Destroyer in the first movie. That's a really cool moment. That's a really cool moment.
It is, and the Superstar Destroyer moment builds on that, but the fact they all just start dropping into shadow around it. It just looks so good. My favourite Star Destroyer shot is still in Solo in the Nebula.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was really pleased when I rewatched that certain bits just haven't lost any luster for me whatsoever, and that's one of them. So good. So James continues, when Snoke first speaks to Kylo, when Kylo can't fire on Leia, the visions between Rey and Kylo, Rey's lessons, Rey confronting Luke, the parts between Poe and Holdo, Snoke's chambers, Luke's return, Broom Boy, still making me tear up thinking about my brother and I are fighting with broomsticks. The more I watch it, the more I think that The Last Jedi is subtly genius. That might also be why the blatant bits stand out so much. I'm really glad that it resonates for him.
Yeah. He's right. There's loads of bits of Last Jedi I like.
There's loads of little things.
I don't hate Last Jedi. There's lots to like in Last Jedi. There's just a lot that doesn't tie together for me.
Yeah, but that's fair.
Same as Attack of the Clones. Exactly the same situation. Lots of great bits that don't quite pull together.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. From those, I think probably my favourites are... I remember watching Luke's return at the cinema and getting, I was amped when he turned up in the corner of the... when he turns up and starts walking through the corner of the shot, I'm like, oh my God, that's wonderful. And I was expecting what I didn't expect what we got. That dawned on me it started to sort of kind of crystallize about midway through the lightsaber, while they were sort of dancing around. About midway through, I sort of went, hang on a minute. But yeah, in terms of when I first saw him on the screen.
Well, you mean when you realised he wasn't actually there?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it dawned on me about halfway through because I realised that there was a point where he skids along the floor and he doesn't make tracks in the salt, and they've made a point of drawing out the other guy when he does the salt thing. Yeah, draws a path in it and it goes and it changes colour underneath. Yeah, and he didn't do that, and that sort of struck me. It caught me as odd, but I couldn't quite figure out why straight away.
Yeah, I got a bit earlier when he had the wrong lightsaber.
I just thought maybe, I didn't really think anything of that beyond that could be any number of things. Okay. Luke's return thing, I was hyped when that happened in the cinema. And, I kind of can appreciate what we got, but that first moment where he started walking through the back of the shot and just making his way into the shot, I was so excited. The Broom Boy thing, I'm
not a fan of Broom Boy.
No, me neither. But I can sort of see how if you've grown up fighting with broomsticks, that would kind of be a nice little thing.
Yeah, I just think that whole scene wasn't needed. The film could have ended the previous scene,
or maybe you just rearranged it so that Broom Boy is slightly earlier, and maybe you sort of end on the anyway. But I sort of get why they're going for it. Why didn't Holdo move the cruiser to shield the transports?
I don't want to talk about it.
That's fair. To be honest, that bit I can't remember, so I wouldn't want to answer anyway. Why didn't the transport split up? That's a great question.
I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, that's a really good question that I don't have an answer for. Solo was a lot of fun, but I still can't see it as a Han Solo story. I keep expecting this new character to pop up in another movie somewhere. Well, depending on where he's in the timeline, that's unlikely. But I sort of get how that could be, how you could end up feeling that. Me personally, I don't feel that, but I could see how people could. That's just kind of my take on it.
No, I thought he was brilliant.
I think he does a really good job.
Yeah, I was totally on board for Solo. I can't agree there, I'm afraid.
That's fine. I mean, I don't think he's expecting agreement on our part for everything. He's in the wrong show for agreement on everything every time.
It's talk Star Wars, not agree Star Wars.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
What do you think of an academy, in quotes, where inexperienced filmmakers can make Star Wars stories on small budgets? Something along the same budget as A New Hope, I guess unadjusted for inflation.
Yeah.
Each year, one crew is chosen by fans to win the Lucas Award for outstanding filmmaking on a budget. The prize for that is a full budget film.
That sounds a terrible idea.
I'm conscious of. I'll give you an example of why I'm a little bit apprehensive about something along those lines. I like the idea of rewarding inexperienced filmmakers for good filmmaking on a budget. I don't think the reward for that should be a full budget film, and I will tell you for why. There is a portion of fandom, and I want to believe it's ironic, but I can't be sure because of the way the world is now, that was excited when Tommy Wiseau made noise about directing a Star Wars film. Now, Tommy Wiseau, for those who aren't familiar, is the guy who did The Room, widely regarded as one of the worst films ever made. So much so that they made a documentary about how terrible it was. I don't want him anywhere near Star Wars.
No.
I don't associate him with quality. And I don't want him anywhere near a serious Star Wars movie. If they want to sort of take the approach of, it's like a sort of like Detours was going to be, like a little silly kind of a silly aside, that's fine. But I don't get the impression that's what that was going to be. I got the impression it was played very straight and very serious. I don't want him anywhere near it. I don't
like the idea of inexperienced. What's an inexperienced filmmaker? I'm an inexperienced filmmaker. If you want to give me a budget for A New Hope, I will just take that money and run.
Yeah, well, I mean, yours is a special moral case, but
I have been called that before. Yeah.
I think the merit based kind of
it's a bit too pop idol to me.
I see. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Sort of Great British Bake Off meets Star Wars. It feels a bit like everyone go off into your corners and make your Star Wars movie.
Yeah, and
then Peter Cushing in drag will come along and judge it.
I mean, we could do that with CG, I suppose.
Yeah.
Nowadays, if anything, we can. I like parts of this. I like the idea of having an award for outstanding filmmaking on a budget, and I like naming it after George Lucas because he's done that in the past.
Yes.
I don't think the reward should be now you get to do it again, but properly this time.
Yeah,
that's an odd prize. Is hey, we recognise that you're really good at making money go farther. Here's a really bad test of that ability in the opposite direction. It seems doesn't quite land for me, but I really like the idea of having an award for filmmaking on a budget because that's something I think that isn't appreciated enough certainly it's not something you're going to see an Academy Award for. That's all about you get the sort of the indie stuff gets a little bit more love at the Oscars, but I think that's more of a self-serving kind of artist. We're all so clever kind of self-congratulatory vibe. I like the idea of celebrating the fact that you can do something really great with limited resources. Mm-hmm. That's more my kind of where I swing on that. So I'm kind of that side of things I really, really like. But the notion of taking those people and giving them Star Wars movies as a reward doesn't quite land for me.
Yeah.
James concludes, hopefully I'll have more next week. Take care, James.
Will do.
Yes, you too. And thank you as always, for sending in your thoughts. And obviously feel free to send us more because we'll always read them. Our next message comes from Ian. And Ian writes, Achuta.
I don't think that means what you think it means.
I don't know. Maybe it does. And maybe it's just a really aggressive intro.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
I don't think that's what you meant to say, mate. But anyway, yeah.
That's fair.
Or maybe you did.
Ian here. Thanks again for reading my email and for your comments. Again, you raised many good points that made me rethink what I previously believed. Just to quickly touch on some of the things I wrote last time. Firstly, regarding Snoke's ring and its reference in the comic books, I feel that it might be touched upon again in Rise of Skywalker, as we've seen JJ use comics to tell 3PO's Red Arm story in the past. JJ has continued to be an executive producer and was aware of the plot of The Last Jedi. Plus, the ring was first referenced in The Last Jedi's visual dictionary. However, I personally doubt it will be mentioned, much like Luke's compass to the first Jedi temple and the red kyber crystal he wore in The Last Jedi. So that's the one we mentioned earlier.
That's not how that works. J.J. Abrams puts the red arm gag in Force Awakens. And then later on, someone comes along and does a fill-in story explaining why C-3PO has a red arm. I don't believe J.J. Abrams was involved in that comic or actually had an idea as to why C-3PO had a red arm.
Okay, I have no idea. I've read that comic, but I can't recall any of the credits or anything as to whether or not there's any sort of mention of him in there. Moving on. As for the part when I said Snoke was interested in Luke, I think I miswrote that. I was trying to emphasize that Snoke may be the Emperor. In Return of the Jedi, he tried to turn Luke and failed, so in the new films, Snoke has been obsessed with defeating Luke. That may have been the reason why he took Kylo to Dagobah, so that he could confront his fear, Luke, so that he would not fail at his mission. Okay. So yeah, we touched on this last week, says obviously the Force, the Dark Cave doesn't necessarily show you Luke. It just happens that so far everybody who's been in there has seen Luke. Because, he's one of the most powerful Force users in the history of the galaxy. It's understandable that he would inspire fear.
We were riffing then. We didn't mean to imply that as a serious theory we held.
Going back to the prophecy and when it was fulfilled, I never thought that it had been completed at the end of episode 3. I quite like that idea. 2 Jedi and 2 Sith left. However, it raises a few questions, as there were Jedi that escaped, even though Vader hunted them down. We also have the guys from Rebels, Force-sensitive Luke and Leia, and many other Force-sensitive children around the galaxy. I guess the best way to look at it is not a balance of the Force, but a balance of Sith and Jedi. I guess the reason why I still think about the prophecy is because Lucas said that this was Anakin's story, and yet he doesn't exist in the sequel saga. And why in episode 7 did Kylo say that Vader visited him? So yeah, on this one, if there's one thing I've not been so keen on about both the Legends canon and the expanded universe that's gone, it's the increasing inefficiency of Order 66 every time there's a new release.
Bloody-lutely.
It's just, Order, execute Order 66. Okay, no problem. Did you get them all? Sure, mostly. I'm not liking mostly. What does mostly mean? Well, probably 78%.
Yeah.
86 at a push.
The problem is that Dave Filoni is very much the Oscar Schindler of Order 66. He's desperately trying to save as many as he can.
Yeah. I mean, as analogies go, it's one of the more obscure ones. But I'll go with it.
Yeah, Dave Filoni likes bringing back people who are supposed to be dead.
Yeah, which is, fair enough. It's a way to tell stories for sure, and people seem to like it. But yeah, it does mean that Order 66 becomes very... Yeah,
I agree. There's not supposed to be any Jedi.
No, this is it. Like when episode 3 concluded, I don't think there were. Were there?
Mm-hmm.
At that point, when we're talking in sort of expanded universe and stuff, there were very, very few.
Yeah.
There certainly weren't, Ahsoka, Kanan. She wasn't a Jedi, I guess, but
yeah, no, I get what Ian is driving at, and he is correct, and he says there's actually loads of Jedi alive.
Yes.
I feel that's a misinterpretation on the part of some of the creatives in Star Wars,
right?
Because I think there are supposed to only be 2 Jedi and 2 Sith, and it should have been left as that,
right?
But then you get the creatives, all of them want to use Jedi because that's the easiest way to make something feel like Star Wars. And as you say, it has the knock-on effect of making Order 66 less and less impressive when you get more and more Jedi slips through the gaps, and we end up with, Darth Vader then goes hunting down or remaining Jedi. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But it dilutes it, I think. Yeah. It is a thing they've done, and obviously I accept it as canon. It's just not something I'm a fan of.
Yeah, I'm with you, to be honest, on that one. I like I say, it's just one of those things over the years. It's just kind of been like, man, this. I mean, it's a very good cautionary tale against the excesses of over bureaucratic government, but it's not the kind of thing I expect Star Wars to be kind of dealing with that sort of level of over bureaucratic kind of send up. Why in episode 7 did Kylo say that Vader visited him?
I'm under the impression it was Snoke pretending to be Vader.
That's my I mean, I sort of saw it that way too.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, it's to say it was a question that was asked in the message. Moving on to some new stuff that I read.
Okay.
First is the info from Bob Iger's memoir, Bob Iger's memoir regarding Lucas feeling betrayed by Disney. I don't know how to feel about this story. Apparently, the contract stated that Lucas's ideas may not be used, plus he sold Star Wars for a small fortune. Did he really expect Disney to make the films he wanted? Especially after the reception of the prequels.
Mate, for $8 billion, you can betray me all you want. That is a standing offer.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest, I would accept like
50p in a curly whirly.
600. I would be that.
Yeah,
you know,
that's your price.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to betray my entire creative vision, 600 quid. Anyway, continuing, Lucas told James Cameron about his idea for episode 7. He would have introduced a macrobiotic world with creatures called the Wills that feed off the Force and communicate with midichlorians.
It's true.
These creatures operate differently than other life forms and control destiny. People are vessels for the Wills, and they were essentially the Force.
Yep.
I'd heard this idea a while ago, and I think A New Hope was originally called Journal of the Wills.
Early on, yep.
Apparently, Disney didn't go with this idea because people didn't really like midichlorians and wanted a more fan-friendly movie. Lucas felt betrayed because what we have now isn't the true story.
I think the reason Disney didn't go with it is because sometimes you get these scripts come along and people will pitch ideas like that, and the technical term for them is balls. The problem is they gave him $8 billion and George Lucas came back with an idea which was unequivocally balls. There was no way if that's inner space, what he's just described there, the Dennis Quaid and Martin Short fantasy comedy Inner Space, which is perfectly fine if you're after a Martin Short, Meg Ryan sci-fi comedy. Yep. That's the one to go down. Unfortunately, it's totally possible for something to be an okay concept, but balls for a completely different job, like being a Star Wars sequel.
Yeah, indeed.
It sounds on paper. I mean, there's every chance he could have got it to work. I'm incredibly skeptical that this would have been the Star Wars movie that we wanted.
Yeah, indeed.
It feels a bit Avatar somehow.
Yeah.
And
yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I think Disney made the right decision in not doing a Star Wars movie that was balls until their third one.
Moving on. Ian asks, so do you think Lucas should have had his movies made after he sold the rights? Would you have rather seen his story been told than what we have now? I think we've established no.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Would you have liked that film?
The macrobiotic world of the Wills. No, I don't think I would have. I think I would have been sitting there kind of a little bit not really sure where to look.
Yeah.
All the way through.
People criticise the Star Wars Episode 7 for being a bit too close to A New Hope. But if you'd gone in and it was basically the Abyss.
Zodiac.
Yeah. It sounds like the Abyss, if anything.
Yeah, kind of. And I love the Abyss.
I love the Abyss, but it's not a Star Wars story.
No, indeed, and nor would I want it to be. It would be weird.
Exactly. It would be balls. Yeah.
Wow.
I get you. It's George Lucas. One of George Lucas's problems, and if this is something he's said and admitted to in his own opinion, I'm not trying to put words in his mouth here, is that he feels his greatest weakness is he never got to see Star Wars for the first time.
Right.
So he sometimes doesn't quite get what people get out of Star Wars.
Okay.
And you can see this also he was incredibly disappointed with The Empire Strikes Back, which I would say it's fair to say, is generally considered to be one of, if not the strongest Star Wars film.
it's in most people's top 3, I would say.
Yeah. So there is that disconnect where he doesn't quite get Star Wars on the level everyone else does. Mm-hmm. But the idea that Disney have come along and are going to make a new series of Star Wars movies, and he turns around and gives them this what essentially sounds like a yogurt advert with lightsabers. It's
the Force is controlled by the good bacteria.
I can understand why Disney were reluctant to use it.
Yeah, because it does sound odd.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. Maybe, like I've said in a previous episode, maybe one day when a certain number of years have passed, we'll get a comic or a book adaptation of what Lucas's trilogy would have been like they did for the Star Wars.
Yeah,
I'd like to. I'm curious to see it, but at the same time, knowing what I know about it or what it would have done, I'm much happier with what we got, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, can you imagine a film where by the end it's basically about kitchen disinfectants.
Yeah.
And it's establishing that the only the 0.1% of bacteria they don't kill is the wills.
Yes.
Honey, I Shrunk the Force.
Bang, and Alderaan is gone.
So Ian continues, this leads on to the next article I read.
Cool.
JJ was recently asked if he had fixed anything from The Last Jedi. He said that he hadn't, as he had experience picking up from where other stories had left off. Mm-hmm. I think he has experience putting other people in that position too. But however, in the trailers, we've seen Kylo mending the helmet that JJ introduced, and we see the ship that drops Rey off on Jakku in the teaser. It makes me wonder if he'll go back and finish some of his original ideas. I read that he loved the early script for Episode 8 and was jealous that he wasn't directing it. Mm-hmm. But I also read that Rian Johnson made many changes to that script over time. Mm-hmm. JJ also recently said that he would have done things differently than Rian Johnson, but has to respect his decisions as it was his movie. If you had to guess, what would JJ have done differently? Difficult question, I know. Mm-hmm. I would have liked to have seen a JJ Abrams 3-movie sequel trilogy.
Same.
Anyway, thanks again, guys. Ubanya. I'm not sure what that means.
I think it used to be called Rhodesia.
Oh, okay. So if you were to go with JJ's... So let's say JJ had the whole trilogy, which I was actually surprised he didn't by the end.
Even if not necessarily JJ, I kind of feel like I wish a single director or writer had taken it on rather than the
whole thing. Yeah,
the creative mosh pit it ended up being.
Yeah, pretty much. What do you think? I always kind of had this sense that there would be more intrigue about some of the bits that we got. That's, you know, I think if you had one director all the way through, we'd have seen some of these ideas, some of these story threads that were dangled in front of us fleshed out significantly more. You know, I always had this kind of idea in my head, and, you know, maybe you'll think this is balls. I don't know. But I always had this notion in my head that it would sort of center around, could you trust Maz Kanata? So in the second movie, it would be, so I think I pitched this way back when on the Talk Star Wars. It's the second movie is about Rey and Luke, kind of, and their interaction on Ahch-To. And I don't think I actually, in my original idea, I don't think I had Luke leaving the planet. Maybe not until very, very late. Mm-hmm. And then the side story where Finn and Leia, with the help of Lando,
right,
because he had Cloud City connections and the lightsaber was on Bespin.
Yeah.
Kind of following that thread of where that goes. Using Lando as kind of like a sort of, a bit like the Donald Glover version. Mm-hmm. That kind of smooth talking, you know, a guy in the squad whose job it is to sort of smooth talk their way out of trouble. Like almost like a version of the Canto Bight story that I would have cared for more, I suspect. I was kind of, I suppose that probably puts a little bit too much more emphasis than there probably would have been anyway on the lightsaber story. But I don't disagree with you that we probably could have done with seeing more of that.
Yeah,
because we really didn't get much of it at all. How about you?
that's what we were thinking in terms of what JJ would have maintained across episode 8.
I guess so, yeah. What might he have done differently? How could you sort of see that following on from episode 7 if you were to have a continuous director's influence the whole way through?
I think he was ramping up to have Luke as a hero in 8.
Yeah.
I really do. I don't think he would have done the dejected, broken Bilbo that we got in Ryan Johnson's 8. I feel like he had a plan for Snoke as well. And as you say, I think he had a plan for Maz Kanata. I'm still pretty convinced they're supposed to be the same person.
I'm still not quite sure how you get there, but that's fair enough.
But yeah, episode 8 definitely drew that theory out.
Sure.
It was just odd little things like why was she was so desperate to get Rey to find Luke.
Yeah.
Why did she have Luke's lightsaber to try and find Luke?
Yep.
It was the line, "I'm not a Jedi, but I know the Force." And also it would have mirrored the Palpatine Sidious arc from the prequel trilogy. So that was why, coming out of Force Awakens, I was like, I'm pretty sure she's going to turn out to be Snoke, which obviously didn't turn out to be the case.
No, indeed.
Because there's a bit of a height difference.
Somewhat. I sort of...
But again, that was a real... If they'd have gone with what I just described, that would have been a real Wizard of Oz thing, the smallest character we've seen pretending to be the largest.
Yeah. Yeah, and that might have been something they'd have gone with. But I suppose in a way, the theory I was kind of working with was not entirely dissimilar in so much as I kind of saw Maz Kanata as a more sinister figure than we were led to believe in the initial film. Maybe just not to the same degree.
Yeah.
But that was kind of how I saw it going in 8. I did see it kind of going a little bit more towards, more of an Empire style story.
Yeah, definitely.
Than a, we're going to go out of our way not to do Empire story.
Yeah.
Which sort of how it ended up feeling.
Yeah.
And then 9 would have been, your kind of Return of the Jedi, a big face off. I would have imagined there's going to be things about this, like there's certain things in films I think that are going to end up, generally speaking, and Star Wars is kind of a specific example of this. I feel like there's going to be decisions made in films in the next few films, especially with Episode 9, where I'm just going to be like, I don't think that makes sense. I don't think it makes as much sense as you think it makes.
Yeah, okay.
And I think one of those things is we might end up seeing this big space battle between the Resistance and the First Order, even though we've established that the bulk of the Resistance fits on the Falcon.
Yeah.
How you end up with that, if you end up with a big space battle at the end, that's going to be the kind of thing where I'm like, oh, hang on, I'm not really sure I'm on board with this.
Yeah,
because of things like that. But I mean, there are ways to kind of work themselves out of that particular corner because they mentioned that the signal's been received and nobody's coming, or nobody's there, rather. But at the same time, hyperspace is a thing, isn't it?
It is definitely a thing. Can confirm.
A thing. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll check that out.
We'll see.
Who might?
So Ian also added, just catching up on some Star Wars news during my commute to work, read a really interesting article about the new Vader Immortal VR game, its plot, and its possible connection to the saga storyline. So this is to do with the Death Star.
Okay.
And, so I'll close off Ian's email and then I'll read this, give you the gist of this.
Okay.
It has some nice ideas and references that I'd like to see come true, even though they'd be hard to explain with only one movie left. Anyway, it'd be nice to hear your thoughts on a future podcast. May the force be with you, Ian, and also with you, Ian. So the player character is trying to retrieve an artifact called the Bright Star.
Right.
So that's the plot of Vader Immortal. So you're underneath Mustafar. You're underneath Fortress Vader, not underneath Mustafar, because then you'd be immolated. Yep. You're underneath Fortress Vader, and you're being guided along the way. And according to this, so I'll read a bit. So, in Vader Immortal, the player character ventures beneath Fortress Vader on Mustafar to retrieve the Bright Star for Darth Vader. Lady Corvax's spirit guides the player on this quest, and along the way, she explains that she stole the Bright Star, the sacred object that provided Mustafar with life, to create a device that would bring her dead husband back to life. That's why Vader wants the Bright Star too, for Padme. However, while the portal was created and her husband was trapped in the world between the living and the dead, the Bright Star energy destroyed Mustafar, transforming it into the volcanic inferno that it is now. The portal remained active, a rip in time and space, and was a major plot point in the Marvel Comics series Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. Okay. So that's where he's going through portals of time travel and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
So apparently there's a lot of visual hints in this that the Bright Star is actually primitive Death Star technology. So the Bright Star looks like a massive spiral kyber crystal within a cave of smaller crystals.
Okay.
The pre-Corvax Mustafarians had been using it as an energy source or perhaps a way to keep their world in balance in the Force.
Right.
So in Catalyst, obviously they facet kyber crystals to become energy sources. And Galen Erso apparently proposed that kyber crystals were able to align the natural dark and light side of the Force to focus, balance, and increase energy output. However, without proper containment, this energy would lash out and destroy everything that surrounded it, as can be seen on Death Star 1, 2, Starkiller Base, and Kylo Ren's sword, and the explosion from the lightsaber in Last Jedi.
Fine.
Okay. Obviously, the Emperor is obsessed with immortality.
Yes.
It seems fair enough. So they're kind of suggesting that maybe the purpose of the Death Star was to actually open a portal to the world between, I guess, the world between worlds or something similar.
Yep.
Sort of another plane of existence that is beyond death. And it touches in on Rebels because Palpatine uses a Mortis portal to penetrate the world between worlds. In the comic book, Palpatine implies that he knows about the portal. And then they touch on Starkiller Base. They did this. So according to the novelization, they mention that they use the weapon rips a hole through time and space, calling it sub-hyperspace. And then General Hux thinks about how the Starkiller melds the quintessence derived from dark matter with the kyber crystals at the core of the planet to create phantasm energy.
Okay.
So that's the gist of this is the Death Star actually a device used that's kind of intended to be opening up the universe, or opening up planes of reality to other worlds, other universes. How do you line up on that as a premise?
I quite like it when the Death Star was a super weapon. What do you think?
I'm good with the Death Star as a super weapon. I think it's a really effective one.
Yep.
I do understand. I like the fact that people are trying to sort of find other explanations for things. I do admire the effort involved in kind of not reading too much into these things, but reading into these things to a larger degree. And I do like the fact that there's so much little bits and pieces peppered in through this VR Immortal thing.
Yeah.
Because I think that these little bits of story kind of not fluff. These little bits of sort of extra story are, generally speaking, I'm quite positive on them. I think they're a good.
Okay.
I think they're a nice thing to have. I would be inclined to not look too heavily on a VR game as a source of hard canon. That's the only thing I'm.
Yeah, I mean, the video games, certainly in the old expanded universe, used to be the broad strokes of it were canon, but individual player character actions won't be.
Sure.
So like the overall plot of Force Unleashed is true.
Yeah.
The individual things you would do weren't canon.
Yeah, there wasn't a time in Force Unleashed canon where Vader spent 3.5 hours on Kashyyyk chopping up Wookiees before completing his objective, which is how I played it.
Yeah, can confirm.
Yeah, it's because it was just too damn cool not to do that.
Yeah, the whole idea of making the Death Star is supposed to open up gateways is a bit
Event Horizon-y.
It's too weird. Like it. Sometimes people come along with really weird takes on Star because it's almost like they desperately try and put a new spin on it, and sometimes it works. Like as we said, God knows how many times before on the show, Rogue One puts a new spin on A New Hope that really works.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there was an officially published Predator spin-off novel that established that the Predator from the first Predator movie that you see is actually two different Predators. One a criminal murdering Predator and the other one a copper Predator sent to kill him. And Dutch's team have a case of mistaken identity between the two of them.
What?
And that's exactly how I feel about retconning it so the Death Star is going to be punching holes in gates.
Awful. That's really bad.
It's that kind of thing, though.
Yeah.
That straight away is what that Death Star pitch made me think of.
Yeah, but that Predator thing is...
It's awful.
Yeah, it's really quite
It's really trying too hard.
Yeah.
Never mind, it's also a rip-off of a Dolph Lundgren movie called Dark Angel.
Called Predator versus Predator.
Yeah. It's kind of fun. Dark Angel's quite a rip of Predator anyway, I guess.
Yeah, kind of.
It's trying too hard. It's really, really trying too hard. The Death Star, as cool as it is, it's a super weapon for a fascist dictatorship is using to subjugate people and rule through fear, as established in dialogue in the original movie.
Yeah.
You don't need to, as you say, you don't need to turn it into the Event Horizon.
No, indeed. And, you think I'd like that because Event Horizon, but...
Yeah. There's sometimes when you retcon a little thing, it's really cool. Like I am a massive fan of the retcon with Superman's crest being, actually in Kryptonian that means hope.
Yeah.
That's great. That's really clever. It's clever. It's kind of funny because it's a little bit of lampshading, really, and we kind of know that's really not what they originally designed it as, but you've come up with a good workaround for it. Mm-hmm. And that one, I'm a really big fan of that little retcon. That works for me. It adds something, and it's kind of fun. Mm-hmm. This sounds awful.
Yeah. I'm hoping that it is just one of those things where it's kind of a little bit of, it
would be like if
a bit more speculative than the way Ian writes it says that it's kind of, he does call out quite correctly that it's a theory. And it is just possible connections based on, pretty not flimsy, but varying degrees of speculation kind of evidence.
It depends how they push the video game, to be honest. If they're going to push it along the lines of something like Fallen Order, or the Battlefront 2 Inferno Squad campaign, which were canon, that's fine. If it's going to be pushed more as a bit of fun, because I'm under no impression that Tiny Death Star was supposed to be canon.
No, indeed.
As awesome as that gymnasium was.
Yes.
It depends how they market the game, to be honest with you. I'd like to play it, but I'm not forking out for a VR headset for the amount I play video games.
That is totally fair. I don't think I have the space really to justify VR in my flat.
Fair.
Not least of all because I'm also not a massive fan of the tech, and it makes Jen feel ill. So she gets that motion sickness stuff quite quickly with the VR stuff. So it would only be me who's using it, and I don't really care for the tech that much.
Mm-hmm. No, so I hope that's where I'm really not a fan of that idea.
No,
It would be like if they did an Alien story set between Alien and Aliens, where they just wipe Ripley's memory.
Yeah, indeed.
How stupid would that be?
It would be pretty dumb. It's a shame.
They never do.
Yeah, let's hope they never do it. Certainly hope they never release it as an audiobook. So to be clear, for those listening, we're not talking about Colonial Marines, even though that is also daft. Even I actually thought the game didn't turn out terribly, and I'm sure I'll get letters. You want to talk about getting letters? Stuff like that.
Colonial Marines.
I'm not defending it in so much as I think it's a fantastic game, but I don't think it's nearly as bad as it's been. I think time has made a bigger fool of that game than any action on the part of the developer.
Yeah,
it's just one of those games like Duke Nukem where it's a perfectly adequate game that is just way too late to be good.
I've avoided Colonial Marines because I've been led to understand it will annoy me more as an Aliens fan than I would enjoy it as a video games fan.
I would say that is entirely fair.
Yeah, okay.
Based on what I know of you and also having played the game.
And having met you a few times.
Yeah, exactly. Having, with those things in mind, run like the wind.
Oh, we have fun.
We do have fun.
Yeah.
And we have fun because of wonderful people like Ian who've written in. So, Ian, thank you very much for that.
We should do a podcast.
I know, right? So our last email this week comes from Michael. I know.
That's gone by quick.
It has. It really has. It's like an hour and 44 at this stage.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
That's all right.
That's a bit weird of me. That's all.
And Michael writes, "Good day, Rob and Brad. And a general nod of respect to all TSW4's hosts present at the time of broadcast." I like this little disclaimer at the beginning. I really dig it.
Love it.
Great news hearing that Kevin Feige, I didn't do the research on pronunciation.
No.
Kevin Feige has agreed to join the Star Wars universe. I'm a huge fan of what he's achieved at Marvel and can't wait to see where he will apply his talents in Star Wars.
Absolutely.
The Marvel projects were constructed in a way that you could take some of the movies as standalone, like my wife has, or as one largely connected adventure, as I have. Mm-hmm. I'd really like to see Kevin construct something equally as connected in Star Wars. I'd like to throw forward the idea of anchoring Kevin with the history of Malachor 5 storyboards.
Okay.
This is a huge resource yet to be mined, and I know he certainly has the talent. A multimedia approach combining live-action TV, cartoons, and another 9 movies, we can dream, across the events of Sith versus True Sith, The Mandalorian Wars, and the Jedi Civil War would have me screaming, "Disney, take my money!" I'd like to hear your thoughts, and if it were up to you, where would you like to see Kevin's involvement?
Ooh.
I very much dig the idea of having somebody overseeing a more interconnected universe, because actually I don't think, despite what I thought the story group was going to be for, I don't think that's what they're being used for. Mm-hmm. I assumed it would be like a Marvel thread weaving exercise. It would be, we're going to use. I watched Spider-Man: Homecoming for the first time this week, and I thought it was pretty good. I quite enjoyed it. And what I liked about it was they were able to build a completely new story out of plot threads that you'd never seen before from from time periods of the movies we had seen before.
Yeah.
So the whole premise of the movie is around Vulture salvaging, things like the remnants from the Chitauri attack on the Avengers Tower in Avengers Assemble, and it ends with him trying to steal a bunch of stuff from the migration from Avengers Tower to the Upstate facility.
Yeah.
And that's really cool stuff because it must have happened behind the scenes. Yeah. Because they go from Stark Tower to the Upstate facility. So that all the stuff got moved. Mm-hmm. And when you see it, you go, "Oh, that's clever."
Yeah.
They're brilliant. I think they need that on Star Wars. I don't think they've had it enough.
I think the story group, we were told they were resetting the canon so that they could take it more seriously. And actually what's happened is they've reset the canon and taken it just as seriously as we ever took the expanded universe. I don't believe any movie is ever held back by something that's been done in a comic or a choose your own adventure book.
Yeah. Which is a shame because it feels like at one point we were kind of looking at comics as having the same gravitas as movies. Which
is ostensibly what the new canon is.
Ostensibly, yeah.
But it's still very much that hierarchy there.
Yeah.
And I think, certainly since Reboot, I think the novels have suffered for it. Mm-hmm. I think the bulk of the novels are not as exciting as they were before. There have been good books. But there's not the buzz around them there was for Legacy of the Force or the Jedi Order and stuff like that because they were allowed to push it in new directions.
Yeah.
And establish and build up little bits of the universe as their own. Mm-hmm. And if these books were actually as valid as the films, we would be seeing and being excited about novels and comics that had as much weight as the movies do.
Yeah.
But that is very definitely not the case.
No, indeed. I would be hard-pressed, I think, to find anybody who thinks that, even if you like them more, and everything's subjective, so of course you're going to find somebody who finds that to be the case. I think you'd be hard-pushed to find somebody who would believe that Chuck Wendig's Aftermath trilogy has the same weight in storytelling terms as the original Thrawn trilogy did at the time. I really think
totally.
That, I've certainly, if I think it's difficult to evaluate because I love the Thrawn trilogy, but I get the impression that even if I didn't love it, I would have persevered with it. Whereas with the Aftermath trilogy, I gave up very quickly because of the art, the writing style just put me completely off.
The marketing department should have lent on that more. Can you imagine the actual impact something like Bloodline would have had if they'd pushed that to a more general audience as this is official canon?
Yeah, I think it's a shame that there's a lot of. It's tricky. I want to make sure to not just sound. I don't want to sound like I'm just ragging on everything because I don't mean to. But I do feel like
you've changed
over a period of time. I think once the dust has settled on the first kind of let's talk about this as kind of the first wave of Disney Star Wars.
Yes.
So let's say it ends with the Rise of Skywalker because that's kind of how it's working.
That's wave one. Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. Let's look at it that way. I think when you look back on this, there will be a lot of discussion about missed opportunity and a lot of discussion about, but it was great, but.
Yes, I think you're right.
I think that people I don't think it will be looked upon. I don't mean to say it as in like, people are going to look on this as like a terrible time, because I don't think they will. To be honest, even if it was a terrible time, I think people nowadays it's team sports, right?
Yeah.
People are never I don't think people are ever going to be truly kind of objective on this stuff. And I suppose to a degree it's hard to be because it is art at the end of the day. But I do think if we look back, when we look back on the Disney era and the first go at it, I think I really do think that we may talk about this quite heavily in terms of what might have been and how, there'll be articles, I'm sure, and probably from outlets that right now are championing it as the greatest thing ever to happen in 3, 4, 5 years. Let's be real. This sucks, and this is not good, and this could have been way better, and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
I think they're already going to be sharpening those axes. They're probably already planning it. I think it's incredibly optimistic of them, a lot of these outlets, to assume they're going to still be around in that time. But such is the modern media landscape. Yeah. But I think we're going to talk about these things very heavily in terms of what might have been. I think there's going to be a lot of. Much like, how everybody's kind of really positive on the prequels now. Yeah, okay. I remember when the same people who were really positive on the prequels now were throwing shade on them.
Of course.
Unapologetically and incessantly.
Yeah,
and
totally.
It does wind me up sometimes how short people's memories are when it comes to that stuff. Yeah. Because I would love to see some of these people who are obviously now just kind of riding the bandwagons get called out on it occasionally. It would be nice it would be cathartic. Maybe it wouldn't bring me any joy.
Some people built their careers on absolutely ripping the prequels to shreds. Yeah. And then the next thing you know, they've been cast as Uncle Plot.
Well, quite. That was as you were describing it, I was thinking of exactly the same person. So, yeah. But yeah, exactly. People made all this noise about these childhood ruining moments. Yeah. And then they're complaining about people who use the same language when talking about The Last Jedi because it really didn't land for them in the slightest. I'm like, you absolute hypocrites.
Yeah, totally.
It's a real shame that people have such short. It's not. I don't even think that they have short memories. I think they hope that we do. And I can remember these things. I mean, maybe not as well as I'd like because stupid brain, but yeah. It is
a stupid brain. We've done the tests.
This is true. Yeah, it did come out. There's no fancy Latin name for it. Stupid brain, stupid brain disorder, or SBD.
Stupidus brainicus.
Yeah. But I do, I do get a little bit put out by it when I see people.
He's really practicing saying "I do," aren't you?
I want to get it out of my system now. Yeah. I'm finding that, I'm finding myself a little bit kind of put out by that kind of selective memory of people who are very much like, oh yeah, so-and-so's on Team Star Wars. Like, are they though? Or are they just on Team Convenience? Yeah. Anyway, there's two parts of this question.
Okay.
My other question for this week is based on a TSW Fantasy Star Wars five-a-side football match for charity.
Brilliant.
Agreed rules would be that all participants of said football match would put aside personal differences as well as their weapons to do their bit for the cause, the Clean Up Endor's Forest Fund.
Oh, Star Wars fans never change.
No, indeed. First things first, please flip a coin to decide whether you are the selector for the light or the dark team. Do you have a coin flipper? I think I have one.
I've tails.
We probably should have assigned it to something.
Sorry, heads.
I don't think you got what I was getting at. All right. Heads, I go light. It's heads.
Okay.
So you get dark team.
Okay, cool.
Now that our team selectors have been decided, we, the listeners, would like to know who you choose to represent your side, and if at all possible, make a prediction on the likely score. Fantastic. So, five-a-side. And you can have a couple. You can have a couple of subs if you can't be sure, because obviously five-a-side teams do. Because, you know.
Five-a-side, put purple differences and no weapons.
Yep,
okay.
Exactly.
So I'm in Maul with his spider legs.
I think that's a good pick. Where do you put him?
I'm in goal.
Put him in goal?
He's got 8 legs.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
How are you going to get past that?
That's fair enough. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. One of the Bomar monks.
I mean, are they light side or dark side?
I don't know. I think they're just scenery, aren't they?
They're just, yeah.
They're just kind of there.
For similar reasons, probably General Grievous.
Grievous is a great shout.
He can do that scuttling thing. It's not technically handball.
No, indeed. And also, if you're playing five-a-side indoors, he's going to be really useful.
Yeah.
Similar to anybody who can wall run. So for my pick, is it Cal Kestis from Fallen Order?
Okay, yeah.
Because he can wall run, so that's helpful.
Serious amount of free running going on there, yeah.
Yep. And even if he's playing outside, I feel like he's agile enough that it will probably still be a boon.
What's the name of Iden Versio's droid?
Oh, Convenience.
Yeah.
Basically, I get the feeling it's EA have got the same model somewhere on their server for droid on back, because Cal Kestis has one as well. So
okay.
Come on.
Yeah. He'd be handy just to like subtly tase players on the light side too.
We said no weapons. That qualifies.
Does that qualify? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll read it.
Does it qualify?
I mean, that's literally all he does is tase things.
Well, quite. But my point is maybe he's not that useful otherwise.
Okay, well, he can be our mascot then.
Okay, that works.
Subtly tase people.
People in the crowd.
Yeah.
ID10, his name is.
Okay.
He's a Seeker droid. So, light side. I mean, obviously, Kiadi Mundi.
So it's not mean dark siders are actually that physically fit.
No, it's true. I mean, obviously, you know, Vader's not going to last the full 90, is he?
Yeah, I mean, I could cheat and put Jabba in goal, I guess. But...
I mean, that counts.
Yeah.
It makes sense. And I can put Bendu.
It's got no feet.
No, it's true.
It's one thing for me to say, can we get around General Grievous because we're all kind of technically legs. I can't even have a decide to go for another player who literally has no legs.
He can go in goal. Why can't he go in goal?
I mean, how does a Doug work in this anyway?
I mean, he'd be a good goalkeeper, I think.
Is he handball or not? Because we're kind of walking around on their hands, aren't they?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. They'd have to lay out the ground rules of that ahead of time, wouldn't they?
Not necessarily going for bowler anyway. It got me wondering if that would be handball or not.
It's a fair question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, same thing. Actually, there you go. There's my goalkeeper, Dexter Jetster.
God damn it.
Yeah.
Good shirt.
Yeah. Although, actually, I'd make sure you get him a uniform that fits, so that you're not constantly dealing with the fact that he's adjusting himself.
Yeah.
When he should be keeping goal. See also Rio Durant.
It's a spectator sat behind him I worry about.
Yeah, I mean, Rio Durant would be a good pick if he wasn't like sort of 2/3 that size.
Yeah, true.
I actually want to... The trouble is, I really want to put Beckett in my squad, but he's tricky. Because does he even qualify? He's not good, really, is he?
He's a tweener, really, isn't he?
Yeah.
Sort of villainy.
You don't really get that in the way of football teams.
He could be a referee.
Everton, I guess.
He could be a specialist referee.
He could be a referee. That works.
There we go. Yeah. Getting tased.
Yeah. Basically, ID10 is just tasing anybody he's allowed to tase, which is to say members of the crowd and the ref.
Yeah, I mean, the dark side is really. I don't want to put Vader in. He's not the fastest dude, is he?
Well, I say he's not going to be
weird as he's got robot legs.
He's not going to be able to last the full 90. He's going to he's going to be out of breath. He already sounds it when he just starts up.
Palpatine, he can do that Psycho Crusher. That's literally the only time you ever see him really move.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of less impressive than an overhead kick in many ways, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean Dooku, nope. Random Snowtrooper number 4, nope. Tarkin, nope. I love Krennic, but
I think you might be better off going towards bounty hunters or something.
Yeah, I'm going to stick Krennic in there.
Okay.
Because I don't have to explain that, do I?
No, that's fair. If there's one person you don't have to explain this to,
hunters, most of the bounty hunters, all we see them do is stand still.
Yeah, I mean maybe you need that in a free kick.
Yeah, I guess. Or take Kylo Ren. Actually, he can get a shift on.
Yeah, I mean, does the Force count as a weapon? I guess it kind of should, but it kind of doesn't because it's innate, right?
I even say he's got to be kind of physically fit, hasn't he?
Oh, he's definitely in shape. I mean, he's got an 8-pack.
Yeah, it's true. Party 7 in Last Jedi.
Exactly. You know,
I've got one left.
Swallow Ren. Ben Swallow.
I've got one left. I think I want Hux as the coach.
I like that. Oh, can you imagine his pre-match briefing?
It's
be incredible, wouldn't it?
Just shouting like he's sat on himself.
Yeah. I'm good with that.
I've got one left. I've got to consider this carefully. Thrawn.
Okay. He's got a kick on him in the new canon.
Yeah, also he can just take a look at your team's logo and figure out how to beat you.
Is that still established canon? I suppose it is, isn't it?
It's in the books for sure, yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely done it at least once.
Yeah,
why not? Okay, so I need to work mine out, don't I?
So I've got winning at the moment.
Dexter Jetster, Ki-Adi Mundi.
Yes.
The only thing there is there's no chemistry. They've never played together. So you got to have Kenobi in there as a linchpin.
Kenobi, yeah, okay, yeah.
But I'd have Clone Wars era General Kenobi because you need somebody who's disciplined, and I think that's where you get it. So that's 3. Like Chewbacca feels like a good shout as like a defender.
Oh yeah,
somebody like a centre back, like a Stuart Pearce or a Vinnie Jones kind of hard man.
Yes,
you need somebody kind of quick, I guess. Because you've got quite a lot of. Well, actually, I was about to say you got quite a lot of force, but then actually, you kind of seem to have walked away from Grievous.
Oh, Grievous isn't a force user anyway.
I know, but what I mean is, when I say force, I mean physical force, yeah.
I gotcha, right, yeah. What have I got? So I've got Maul, Grievous.
Yep.
Kylo Ren.
Yep.
I've got Krennic.
Yep.
Mainly because we love Krennic.
Of course, yeah.
And I've already forgotten what I said as the last one. It's getting late.
There's a bit of affirmative Mendo action when it comes to anything we do with Krennic, you know.
Totally. Thrawn, I said, didn't I?
Yeah, Thrawn's the other one, yeah. So is that 5, or is that, have you given yourself
That's
a couple
5.
of subs?
Oh, I've got Hux as my coach.
Yep.
And ID10 is my mascot.
Yes, the tasing mascot, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
if anyone does fall over in a puddle of their own urine, it's definitely not because they've been tased.
Okay, well, good to know.
Yeah.
So, Dexter Jetster, Ki-Adi Mundi, Obi-Wan Kenobi to make sure they can be compatible.
Yes.
But like I say, he's a good pick anyway because he's got some combat experience, which is going to make him a disciplined kind of captain figure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Chewbacca. I'm thinking like Empire era Wedge.
Oh, nice.
Because he strikes me as somebody who can form good kind of 1-2 partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
Because, him and Jansen, they got that whole chemistry thing going on. Luke and Dak, it's not happening. They throw them together. It's like putting a sub in for the big cup game.
He's probably the greatest example of red shirt in Star Wars.
Yeah, I think he's the closest you're going to get, isn't he? What's funny is he looks a bit like Gilbert Gottfried, which always amuses me, just because I picture what would have happened if they just put him in instead.
Yep.
I can't believe. I feel like I'm missing one. I think I'm one short.
Wicket.
Wicket's no good. What value does Wicket add? Same problem I've got with putting Yoda in there. What value does he add? He's not quick. Wicket especially, he's not quick at all. He's like a little kid in a fursuit. And Yoda's no good because although he's acrobatic, he's not. Like, he's only really just going over the height of Christopher Lee.
Yeah. When
he's leaping from the floor. And he's in a corner situation. That's not helpful. Not really. Cassian Andor.
Ooh, yes, we do love him.
K2 as the mascot. Because who doesn't want to be cheered on by somebody who's telling you how likely you are to lash it up? And I'd have Saw Gerrera looking after the kit. I don't know why. I just think it'd be hilarious.
It would be, yeah. He'd be a good quartermaster.
Yeah. So that's my pick. So Dexter, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Obi-Wan, Wedge, Chewbacca, and then on the subs bench you'd have you'd have Cassian Andor, and then one more that I think has just escaped me. And you have K2 on the sidelines cheering the team on. At half time, telling the fans rather how likely it is that their team's going to go home empty-handed. And let's say I put Saw Gerrera in charge of the kit because otherwise, he might object.
I think you could trust him to look after it.
I think so. Yeah, he's not big on lies and deception, is he? So he could be like, "Well, where are the shorts? I lost them."
He would keep it on the straight and narrow.
Exactly. You just sound like, "What happened to the shorts?" He's like, "I lost them." It's fair enough. We will just play in our underpants like school, allegedly. I don't think it ever happened to me, but apparently I've heard that's the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Glad we got that sorted out.
Indeed. If it's all possible, make a prediction on the likely score.
15 love.
I'll go with that.
Yeah.
I think there's a 15 and a 0 involved. Maybe that's the penalty shootout.
Yeah. Oh, man, if it goes to penalties, how lame would that be?
If it goes to 15-0, something's gone horribly wrong. Probably the game's crashed. So Michael signs off. All the best, Michael from Sydney.
That is all the best, Michael.
Yeah, they're all from Sydney. Also, I forget grammar. What now? So, Michael, thank you very much for that. Just one piece of news this week, a very quick one. And then I think we will leave it there because it's been a long show and that's wonderful. But at the same time, I do want to go to bed at some point.
Can confirm.
So StarWars.com this week announced that a director has been tapped for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. And it is Deborah Chow, who has already got some Star Wars experience under her belt with The Mandalorian.
Okay, awesome.
So it seems like there's a good theme running through this. They're going with people who are kind of building relationships with already. And that's kind of, so they build relationships up with people who maybe are lesser known in the Star Wars field, and then they bring them in more in a bigger capacity. I think that's really cool.
Absolutely.
The series will be written by Hossein Amini, who is famous for The Alienist and Drive. I've heard great things about Drive. That's the Ryan Gosling punching movie, which I can't think of a better explanation for it than that.
Okay.
Chow, Amini, and Ewan McGregor will serve as executive producers alongside Kathleen Kennedy, Tracy Seaward of the Queen fame, and John Swartz of Rogue One, a Star Wars story fame.
Cool.
That's a good
balance.
A good balance, a good collection of people, I think. I'm getting the sense of a kind of a little bit of grit, which I think is going to need to a degree to get, I think to get, it seems to me like they're going for this kind of slightly dingier feel for the TV stuff, and I'm fully on for this. I'm very much looking forward to The Mandalorian. I'm just gutted we won't get it here this year, which I shouldn't have to say. It's a pain, but such is life. But there you go. That's the only real piece of news this week. It's been a lot of bits and pieces about toys. I can't remember the name of the character. You mentioned it earlier. Second name of Frick is a little tiny fella, or a little tiny character. I don't know. Somebody speculated on Twitter, which I really quite liked, that it's actually a Jawa with no cape. There's a little character with, scrunched up face, kind of cute.
If we get no other reveals in episode 9, and that's all we get, fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, whatever. Why not? But that's our show for this week. So a bumper show in terms of contributions from our wonderful listener base. So thank you very much to everybody who's written in this week and sent audio messages. If you want to do that, and maybe you've done it before, maybe you've never done it before, maybe you're like Kristen, maybe you've just started listening and you just want to get in there and start your Talk Star Wars listener journey early, then we are always happy to hear from you. And the place to do that is podcast@talkstarwars. No, it's not. Podcast@emotionally14.com with the subject line Talk Star Wars. That's the one. Talkstarwars.co.uk is the website where you can just get the podcast as a player on the embedded, like an embedded thing, basically. That's where I'm getting confused. So podcast@emotionally14.com with the subject line Talk Star Wars is the place to write in your questions or send your audio questions or just send us feedback about the show. Because, we read all the questions we get, but if you just have something you just want to tell us that you don't want read out, you can do that too. You can you just tell us, please don't read this on the air, and we won't. We're nice like that. We're very understanding. We're not going to,
we get it.
We're not clickbait journalists. We deal with things that people are happy to put in the public domain, and only those things. So if that sounds like something you want to get in on, podcast@emotionally14.com is the place to do that. Emotionally14.com is the website where Talk Star Wars lives, and it also contains lots of other wonderful stuff. There's a couple of podcast catalogs of hundreds of hours of comedy, gaming, Star Wars podcasts, you name it, there's a podcast for it. There's existing YouTube series. One is themed on Star Wars, and then one is superhero themed, both produced by my fine esteemed colleague, Mr. Humber Barnes, sitting opposite me in internet land. And you can find all of those things on the YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/emotionally14, youtube.com/c/emotionally14 if that doesn't work. Emotionally14.com is the website. @emotionally14 on Twitter. You can also send messages there because Rick Villanueva sent via Twitter. You can also send us messages on the Facebook. We have a Facebook page for Talk Star Wars, Facebook page for Emotionally14, and @Talk Star Wars and @Emotionally14 on Twitter. You can send all sorts of questions there if you want to. If you want to make a contribution to support us monetarily, that's very much appreciated. It's very kind of you. You can do so at patreon.com/talkstarwars. In exchange for doing so, for as little as $1 a month, whatever you'd care to donate, we provide an ad-free version of the podcast feed that drops a couple of days earlier so you can enjoy the show on a Saturday in the UK or equivalent time zone around the world.
Super.
And otherwise it turns up on a Monday on emotionally14.com. Brad, if people want to follow you in between shows, where's the best place to do that?
You can be my friend on Facebook at facebook.com/BradHarmBarnes. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RealBradHB. And if you're feeling especially kind, you can, of course, buy my books on Audible and Amazon.
Yes, you can. And there are links in every Talk Star Wars post has links where you can go straight there and find those. So you can do that on Amazon. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm on Twitter at RobWadeVision. I'm on Instagram at RobWadeVision. I'm generally slightly more active on Twitter, but, if there's a nice photo, I tend to share it. As I say, twitter.com, Emotionally14 and Talk Star Wars have both got Twitters and Instagrams and Facebook pages and stuff like that. So if you want to interact with us there, that's a way of doing it. I would be remiss, as always, if I didn't mention the fine podcast outfits of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network. Some of these have Patreon, some of them don't. So in addition to Talk Star Wars, does have a Patreon, just mentioned it. We have the Tumbling Saber, who've just reopened their Patreon and are providing some very interesting offerings, which I look forward to hearing more about on their Patreon page. So Tumbling Saber, Generation X-Wing, do believe are on Patreon. The Nerd Room, I don't think they are. Rogue Squadron definitely are, because I patronise them. They do it all by themselves. Wrong patronize, sorry. San Diego Sabres, Retro Inc., and the Sandcrawler Cast are the remaining podcasts on the network. So Talk Star Wars, Tumbling Saber, Generation X-Wing, The Nerd Room, Rogue Squadron, San Diego Sabres, Retro Inc., and the Sandcrawler Cast make up the Star Wars Commonwealth podcast network. And you can find out more about that on the web at starwarscommonwealth.com and take your first steps into a larger world. Thank you very much for listening to Talk Star Wars this week for episode 186. We will see you next week for my final podcast as an unmarried man.
Ooh,
that'll be my last one ever,
times.
won't it? In fact, it'll be my last one ever as an unmarried man. So,
okay,
the Bachelor Cast 187 next week. Until then, thank you very much for listening to Talk Star Wars this week. We will see you again next week. In the meantime, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and as always, may the Force be with you.
Nice.